because whether people understand it or not, there is a certain amount of and depth that comes along with the game. That's a part of doing business.
That goddamn MC Hammer, very serious about beef. Y'all motherfuckers laugh and y'all joke about Hammer. No. Anybody who talk come to the Bay Area, they was in for. Once again, you know, Death Row gonna make sure he get his credit and make sure it's served. Definitely doing that.
Hammer, you feel like home?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, me and she'll go back 10 years, so you know, it's another day.
I would have known who Hammer was rolling with, and he didn't need to pay anyone to take care of things for him. His crew had his back. We're from Oakland, and around here, you don't even have to say anything, people just know. Hammer wasn't just about the flashy clothes and dance moves, he was real and handled his business. Honestly, I used to respect H a lot, but if you think MC Hammer was just about the baggy pants and the dance routines, think again. There's way more to his story than that. It's deeper than what you see on stage. Behind the scenes, Hammer's got a legacy that a lot of people don't understand. Forget about the flashy outfits and catchy beats for a second. MC Hammer was much more than that. His crew, the High Street Bank Boys, wasn't just some group trying to get attention. These guys had a reputation that turned heads in the industry. They were a real deal East Oakland crew, known for their fearless, no-nonsense attitude. Now, Hollywood and the music world didn't know what to make of Hammer. On one hand, he was the family-friendly artist, making millions and rocking the charts. But on the other hand, he was connected to one of the most notorious crews in Oakland, and that made him someone you couldn't ignore. People saw the glitz and glam, but they missed the real story beneath it all. Hammer was balancing two worlds, one that the industry couldn't quite understand. Hammer was untouchable in ways most people didn't even see coming. A lot of rappers and music execs wrote him off because of his mainstream success, but behind the scenes, Hammer and the High Street Bank Boys were the real deal, making people nervous. There's a wild story about how Hammer once stepped to MC Serch from third base after he dissed him in a song, even supposedly putting a bounty out for anyone who could bring Serch to him. And don't forget when he allegedly sent a warning to Ice-T, letting him know that Oakland wasn't a place to mess with. Hammer wasn't just about the music, he had serious street influence that made even the toughest think twice. Hammer wasn't just tough because of his crew, he was fearless all by himself, but those street ties definitely made people think twice before messing with him. The High Street Bank Boys didn't just give Hammer some street credibility, they made sure his name carried weight everywhere on the streets and in the boardroom. So, was Hollywood scared of him? You bet. Hammer showed that you could mix business with a whole lot of fearlessness, and that's what made his legacy untouchable. Now, about his entourage, it was something else. I'm talking more than 100 people, easily. It wasn't just a bunch of guys either, there were women too, all rolling with him. Everywhere he went, they made sure the world knew Hammer was someone you couldn't ignore. When you think of MC Hammer, the first thing that probably comes to mind is the parachute pants, the high-energy dance moves, and the hit song You Can't Touch This, but what a lot of people don't know is that Hammer was more than just a music and dance icon. He had real street ties, and his connection to the High Street Bank Boys, a notorious crew from Oakland, California, was a big part of his story. While he kept that clean, mainstream image for the cameras, behind the scenes, his ties to this crew gave him serious respect in both the streets and the music world. Hammer wasn't just about the fame and the glitz, he had a whole different side that made him who he was. MC Hammer wasn't just another artist, his crew gave him an edge that few in the industry would even think about challenging. To really understand why Hammer was both respected and feared, you have to look at where he grew up. Born Stanley Kirk Burrell, Hammer came from Oakland, California, a city with a rich culture but also some rough streets. Back in the 70s and 80s, Oakland wasn't the easiest place to live, especially in places like East Oakland, where Hammer spent most of his childhood. Stanley was one of 8 kids, and he and his family lived in East Oakland, which shaped him in ways most people don't realize. His story is one of overcoming obstacles, and it all started in that tough city. Growing up in a tough inner-city neighborhood, life wasn't easy for Hammer. Things got even harder when his parents split up and their house burned down. Both of these things happened when he was only 5 years old. But despite the tough circumstances, Hammer's drive was clear from a young age. Even as a kid, he showed a hustle that couldn't be ignored. One of his first jobs, it came in the most unexpected place, the Oakland Coliseum. Back in the early 70s, Hammer worked as a bat boy for the Oakland A's baseball team. This job wasn't just about getting by, it was the beginning of his work ethic that would carry him through the rest of his life. While working at the Oakland Coliseum, young Stanley caught the eye of baseball star Reggie Jackson, who gave him the nickname Hammer because he reminded him of the great Hank Aaron, also known as Hammer and Hank. But this job wasn't just about earning a few bucks, it gave Hammer a glimpse of a world far beyond the rough streets of Oakland. It taught him how to connect with people and opened up new opportunities. Hammer once told a story about approaching the owner of the team, Mr. Finley, after his dance performance. He asked, "Mr. Finley, could you take me into the game as your guest?" And without hesitation, Mr. Finley replied, "Of course, I'd be happy to." This moment showed Hammer how building relationships could open doors, even to places he never thought possible. Back in the early 70s, when the Oakland A's were at their peak, Mr. Finley hired a young Stanley to be their bat boy. It was baseball star Reggie Jackson who gave Stanley the nickname Hammer, inspired by the great Hank Aaron, aka Hammer and Hank. This marked the start of Stanley's journey toward becoming the iconic MC Hammer, but Hammer didn't just stick to his baseball connections, he always had that drive to hustle. As a teenager, he started selling stray baseballs and souvenirs outside the Coliseum, earning enough cash to make a name for himself. At the same time, things were changing in Oakland, and Hammer was right in the mix, grabbing every chance to build his future. In the 70s, Oakland was alive with music, activism, and street culture, and Hammer absorbed every bit of it. But music wasn't his first path. After high school, he joined the Navy. Even there, he stood out as the entertainer of the group, always keeping the energy high. When he came back to Oakland, Hammer knew his real passion was music. He started performing at local clubs, mixing rap and dance, and even sold his first tape straight from the trunk of his car. But Hammer didn't stop there. He took it to the next level by securing a $20,000 loan from Oakland A's players Mike Davis and others to fund his dream. Thanks to Dwayne Murphy and that $20,000 loan, Hammer was able to start his own indie record label, Busted Productions. What began as a small project grew fast. It soon turned into Busted Records, and before long, Hammer had over 100 people working for him. He worked non-stop to promote himself, and let's not forget those iconic dance moves made sure no one could forget him. Sure, he couldn't sing or play an instrument, but his dancing skills were off the charts. His first album, Let's Get It Started, dropped 3 top 10 singles, and just like that, the transformation into MC Hammer was complete. In 1986, MC Hammer officially took on his stage name and released his first album, Feel My Power. Thanks to his non-stop hustle and clever use of local radio, the album sold over 60,000 copies. His songs quickly became a hit at Bay Area dance clubs, and the buzz around him just kept growing. But it wasn't until 1988, at a performance in an Oakland club, that Hammer had his big break. His energy was so intense that a record executive who had never heard of him could immediately tell he was something special. With offers rolling in, Hammer was ready to make his move. Hammer knew his value and wasn't about to settle for any deal. He turned down several offers until Capitol Records came through with a $1.75 million advance. That's when Hammer knew it was time to make his move, and it paid off big time. Capitol didn't have to wait long to see that investment pay off. Hammer's career shot up like wildfire thanks to his incredible stage presence and cutting-edge marketing that set a new standard in the music world. But here's the thing, Hammer's story doesn't end with his rise as an entertainer. Behind the scenes, he was building a reputation that reached far beyond music, one that even the biggest players in the game couldn't ignore. MC Hammer wasn't just a name in hip-hop, he was a straight-up powerhouse. One of the things that made him stand out, his deep ties to the High Street Bank Boys, a street crew from East Oakland. This crew was tough, named after the High Street area, and they weren't afraid to take care of business however it needed to be done. In Oakland during the late 80s and early 90s, the streets were full of hustlers and crews claiming their territory. The High Street Bank Boys weren't just playing around, they had a reputation for being bold and handling things aggressively when necessary. Hammer was right there, connected to this crew that commanded respect. The High Street Bank Boys weren't just your average street crew, they had swagger, money, and influence. That mix made them both respected and feared in Oakland. Growing up in this tough environment, Hammer was closely connected to them. Now, while he always said he wasn't directly part of their street activities, just being linked to the High Street Bank Boys gave him serious street credibility. Their fearless attitude became a big part of who Hammer was, not just in his music career, but in how he handled personal challenges too. The crew was known for being relentless, and though we don't know all the details of their operations, it's clear they shaped Hammer's approach to everything. It's tough to get the full story on the High Street Bank Boys because much of it stayed within the streets, fueled by rumors and speculation. But one thing is for sure, they were a crew you didn't mess with, and Hammer's connection to them made people in the industry pause and think twice before underestimating him. One of the most notorious moments came when Hammer reportedly put a $50,000 bounty on rapper MC Search from Third Base. Why? Because Third Base threw shade at Hammer in their song The Cactus, especially with a line about turning Hammer's mom into a cactus. It was just one of many reasons people learned to respect and fear Hammer. Let's take a trip back to 2015 when MC Search dropped some real talk about what went down with MC Hammer and his crew. It all started when Third Base released their Cactus album. The album blew up on the West Coast and it was being played everywhere. Even MC8 admitted he was cruising around, blasting it in his car, but there was one track that caused some serious drama, The Cactus. On it, Pete Nice spit a line that said, "The cactus turned Hammer's mother out." Now, that was a bold line, and it wasn't just some throwaway bar, it had purpose, but it hit hard, especially for Hammer. The line stirred up some serious feelings, leading to a confrontation. In 2015, search revealed that Hammer's brother, Liz Burrell, had even threatened him during an argument in LA. You could tell that line was more than just words, it sparked something real. Alright, so here's where it gets interesting. We had this line in our song, The Cactus, where we were just playfully throwing shade. The line said, "The cactus turned Hammer's mother out. It was really just a way of saying our album was better." Hey, we had that New York swagger slick, confident talk. But Hammer, he didn't take it like that. He thought we were talking about his mom, and that didn't sit well with him at all. Now, this whole thing came to a head when we planned a huge event in LA at the Palace. It was going to be huge. We were giving away a Jeep, and it was all happening on KDAY, the first radio station to play hip-hop 24/7. I was stoked. I'd never even been to LA, and I was bringing my wife Chantel with me. Pete had his girl with him, and everything was falling into place for a great night. But here's the thing, while we were ready to have fun, we didn't know that things were about to get super intense, real fast. What started as a harmless diss was about to blow up into something much bigger than any of us expected. Alright, picture this, we're all excited heading to LA for what feels like a huge moment. Pete's got his girl, I've got mine, and we're ready for a big event. This isn't just another trip, it feels like we're about to make a movie happen. We're on the plane, buzzing with excitement, when suddenly Carmen Ashurst Watson, who was running Def Jam back then, gets a call. On the other end, someone asks, "Is Third Base on their way to LA?" She says, "Yeah," but then the voice takes a dark turn. It's Liz Burrell, Hammer's brother, and he coldly says, "Good, they're dead," and hangs up just like that. We all stopped and felt the tension. Hammer wasn't someone who took disrespect lightly, and that phone call was a clear warning. The word in Hammer's circle was that if anyone disrespected him, there would be serious consequences. It was a chilling moment for us, and we knew that the stakes were higher than ever. MC Hammer's name carried a lot of weight, and his reputation alone was enough to make even the toughest in the game think twice. One of the most infamous stories about him was the rumored bounty he put out on rapper MC Search from the group Third Base. It was said that Hammer offered a reward to anyone who could bring Search to him, and though it sounded like street talk, Search later confirmed it in interviews. Just hearing about the bounty made Search step back and reconsider his next moves.
And it's the day after the American Music Awards, and we walk into Greg Mack, and we're all excited, and Greg Mack is shaking our hands, and we're all happy-dappy, and, excited to be on the morning show in LA, and yada-da-da-da. Cracks the mic, turns it on, K-Day, da-da-da, AM, Third Base is here, Product of the Environment, release album party tomorrow at the Palace, and, we're giving away the Third Base Jeep. But we got a special person on the phone right now. 5 American Music Awards last night. He's up. He stayed up on our behalf. MC Hammer's on the phone. Hammer, how you doing? Hey, Greg, man, I'm great. Yo, it's great to talk to you. Yada, 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 yada. He goes, yo, I heard you had something you wanted to say to Third Base. He's like, well, I just want to tell him, I don't think it's cool for somebody to, diss their mom in a record. Like, I don't think that's cool. Now, mind you, I never said that lyric. Pete said the lyric, right? So I look over to Pete. You're a rhyme, dude. Say something. Nothing. So I'm like, all right. So I say, you know what? I said, man, if you feel like we dissed your matriarchal, that's okay, but you know what you did. You know what's going on in these streets. Why don't you man up and see me face to face so we can figure this out? Stop being a... He takes a call live. Greg Mack, who's this?
Hiding and deal with things face to face. If they have a problem with me, then let's handle it directly, not through threats over the phone. No more running away, no more playing games. Right when I say it, the call switches over live to Greg Mack's radio show, and he suddenly asks, who's this rolling 60 expletive? The words hang in the air, and everything shifts. Security starts scrambling, pushing us out of the building, and we rush into the van. We're barely getting away when we notice 2 blue cars tailing us. They pull up fast, and before we know it, guys are stepping out, holding Mac 11s, their eyes locked on us. Pookie, not missing a beat, jumps out, throwing up his signs, and just like that, the situation flips. The guys get back into their cars, drive off without another word. It's over, for now. Let's set the scene. After everything that went down, we made our way to the sound check at the Palace, which was right across from the Capitol building. As we pulled up, we noticed something intense. The whole place was surrounded by blue cars. The rolling 60s had shown up, and it was clear they were not to be taken lightly. They had a huge crew, 50,000 members strong, so not everyone was going to get involved, but the tension was thick in the air. We had to stand firm. We couldn't back out now. Big D was by my side the entire time, right next to me like a guard. We were all there for the recording session of We're All in the Same Gang, and Hammer was in the building too. At one point, Hammer and Mike had some words. I didn't catch the details, but I heard it was a pretty tense exchange. It felt like things were definitely heating up and we were in the middle of it all. The energy was electric, but there was a heavy tension in the air. Hammer didn't hold back, making a comment loud enough for everyone to hear, something along the lines of, "Why aren't they dead yet?" He said it right in front of Big D, and you could tell the seriousness of it all. The situation was spiraling fast, and it was clear that the only way we were going to make it into the palace safely that night was if we pretended to be security. So that's exactly what we did. We suited up in full Kevlar gear, dark jackets, hats, and those signature dark glasses that made us blend right in. We were now part of the security crew. The name on the jackets read as security, and we were ready for whatever was coming our way. I had to say goodbye to my girl, and the worry in her eyes was impossible to miss. She was holding back tears, not knowing what would happen next, but the team needed to make sure we got inside first, so we couldn't waste any time. As we walked toward the entrance, we had to act like we belonged, and with everything we had, we made it happen. It was one of those moments where you had to push your fear aside and focus on the mission. We all piled into the dark van, feeling the tension in the air as we saw nothing but blue cars circling the venue. It was like something straight out of a movie. When we finally made it inside, the situation only got crazier. If you had any blue on your socks, you were told to leave the building. It felt like every step we took was under a microscope. But what really sticks with me to this day is how it all played out. I wish I could reach a point where I could see Hammer, give him a handshake, and just let it all go. No grudges, just a shared understanding. It wasn't anything personal. At the time, we were just two artists doing our thing, and yeah, the album titles The Cactus and Turn This Mother Out were just part of the game. I'd love to have a moment where we could both laugh about it, see how far we've come, and finally leave all that behind. Alright, let's dive into it. So back then, the line Cactus turned Hammer's mother out was a bold one, and it definitely caught attention. It was just part of the fun in the rap world, but for me, it was never that simple. It's been years, and I've spent a lot of time in therapy 3 days a week trying to process everything. Honestly, I wish I could just let it go, but when someone crosses a line like that, it's a whole different thing.